Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well because today we're talking about music. Today we're talking about the maybe debut, maybe second album. You know where we're going with this. All Killer, No Filler by Sum 41. Here's the CD. So this was again, some people say their debut album. I'm going to say it's their second album. It's only 2 minutes longer than their EP. And that includes like a minute, like a 30-second introductory spoken word sound thing. So I'm calling it a second album. This was recorded, when was it? March to September, or September to March, from 2000 2001, released May 8th 2001, Aquarius Records in Canada, Island Records in the States. This is their most rock oriented album. Rock, it's what they're all about, right? It's what they live for. They've told us this previously, and we all remember, we all know that. This is, I think, when people think of Sum 41, it's got Into Deep, it's got Fat Lip. I think those remain their biggest singles. They've had other ones, but those are the two that people know. Doesn't mean it's bad, but it does mean it's the most of its time. Uh, some of the other albums, they have a little more metallic influence, maybe more straight ahead punk influence. This is definitely the most pop punk, early 2000s kind of feeling. But there's really good reason for that, and we're going to get into that. And that's actually really interesting to learn. I wrote way more notes on this album than I thought I might, which is great. I love doing that kind of deep dive, and I hope you're into it too. The band cites Dookie as a big influence on them, especially on this album, and you can hear why when you get into it. Yeah, I write notes on paper. We're into that. So the band this time, it's the same as last time. Derek Whibley on vocals, guitar and drums. Drums on Pain for Pleasure. Dave Baksha, who's guitar and vocals. Jason or Cone, who's bass and vocals. And Steve, who's drums and the lead vocals on the intro spoken bit, and the outro bit as well, Pain for Pleasure. Cool fact, so Greg Norrie of Trouble Charger fame, who again, Canadian, I knew them as a pop punk band. They were more of like an alt rock band before, but they definitely came onto the scene, at least to my knowledge, around the same time as a pop punk band. The hits American Psycho was kind of their breakthrough that I was first aware of. So Greg Norrie from Trouble Charger, he's vocals on the track Motivation, backups on Into Deep and Handle This. He does some guitar work on Handle This as well as Pain for Pleasure. And a really cool thing, this is actually, so this is an enhanced CD. Does it say anywhere on here? This is one of those enhanced CDs that was really big around the time period. Somewhere on here it says it's an enhanced CD, maybe in the liner notes. But you get some music videos. So they have a video for It's What We're All About. And on that, Kerry King of Slayer fame does guitar, which is awesome. And again, they cite Iron Maiden and Slayer and a lot of these classic metal bands as influences, and it's really cool to see that crossover. So this sounds a lot like Dookie in terms of its production, and it sounds a lot like the pop punk of the time. And why is that? You have Jerry Finn as producer. He was the mixer for the EP, and he's taken on the production role this time. What are his credits? Dookie and Insomniac by Green Day, Dear You by Jawbreaker, Out Come the Wolves by Rancid, Enema of the State, and Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, Blink-182. So pretty much any hyper noteworthy pop punk act of the time or leading up to this, he's put his fingers on in terms of the production role, which is awesome. And it's really cool to hear that on this one. So I think you get the popular influences on this album as well as kind of that Greg Norrie influence from that same time period, and you get a really good idea of what this sounds like and where we're going with this. To the tracks. Let's talk about the tracks. So we start with Introduction for Destruction. That's a 30-second metal-inspired spoken word bit. It's fine. It takes pace with what else the band was doing. The second track, Nothing on My Back, one of my favorites on the album as a whole, really pop punky, one of my favorite tracks on the album. Never Wake Up is kind of their take on hardcore punk, but definitely via this new sound and this new production they're going. So they got some whoa-whoas, kind of like an Offspring song almost. Track 4 is Fat Lip. This is kind of the lead single. It was released April, so 1 month before the album came out. It's the band's biggest single to date. It has that rap rock style that they experimented with on the last album. We're calling it an album. But again, through that kind of modern pop punky production, the music video does have that "It's What We're All About" from the Half Hour of Power. As a song, it's kind of a cool riff. It's a memorable riff. I definitely prefer the chorus to the verses. It does fit really well together, and you can see the behind the scenes studio work that they were doing to make it work. It's a really catchy chorus. Five Rhythms is another really good pop punk song. Number six, Motivation, which was the third single released for the album. You have Nori on backups, and it reminds me a lot of a Treble Charger track from around the same period in a really good way. Track seven is Into Deep, and that was the second single with a music video where they're at the pool. Even like the videos match that sort of pop punk style of the time. You didn't have kind of in the early 90s you had these pop punk bands sort of talking about like being rejected from society and you know being misunderstood, whereas now you sort of get that class clown attitude, which makes sense. Into Deep, it was, I think it was on like American Pie 2 soundtrack and stuff like that, and it fits with that sort of re-inspiration that Animal House, because everyone that grew up watching Animal House when they were teenagers were now movie directors. You know, that's why culture kind of goes in these 20-year cycles, because the people that were influenced by something when they were kids or young teenagers then go into these professions. So you get kind of the victory of the nerd, and that's sort of the celebratory thing you see in like, especially Blink 182 from around this time. Green Day actually kind of stuck with what they, and then a couple of years after this, they go somewhere else, but they kind of stick with that sort of irreverent, too cool to care sort of attitude. And this one, they're at the pool partying, being dweebs. It's actually my least favorite track on the album. I've never liked it, even when it came out originally, and this album was like my jam. I listened to this album a lot, and same with the next one. But I didn't like this track even then. It just feels like a very generic rock song, which I wasn't listening to generic rock at the time. Now, man, I love my generic rock, but at the time, no. Um, and fun fact as well, this song was actually originally meant to be a Trouble Charger song. And then Greg Norrie was kind of working away at it, and he was like, "Here, you guys take it. You guys can do something better with it than what I think Trouble Charger can." Um, so it does make me think, what would that sound like as a Trouble Charger track? I wonder if there's demos around. I don't think it would have been the same, but it would have been cool. Closing on out. Track 8, you get Summer, which is actually re-recorded from the last album. It's an okay song. It's a weird choice. Like, it wasn't the best song from that last album, so I don't know why they chose Summer to come back, but they did. It's fine. Number 9 is Handle This, which is a pop punk ballad. Your mileage will vary for how much you like that kind of cheese. I actually think this is one of the better pop punk ballads. So, you know, if you think of Blink 182, actually have a lot. Off the top of my head, all I can think of like is Adam's Song, which is actually a very serious lyrical song, so I don't want to make light of that one. But it's the one where the video and it's the three of them rotating through, and they've been here a few times. That song is another pop punk ballad. Obviously, Wake Me Up When September Ends by Green Day is one of those pop punk ballads. And Handle This is their first try at it, and I think it's pretty successful, actually. I like it a lot. Track 10, All She's Got, that's a good one. I like that one a lot. Track 11, Crazy Amanda Bunkface. That's another one of my album highlights. This is one of those gems that I'm like, oh, that's the one to listen to. Crazy Amanda Bunkface on this one. It feels a lot like something that could have been on Dookie or Insomniac in a really good way. Like, there's even a drum break that reminds me of the drum break in Dookie. It's really good track. Track 12, Heart Attack. It's an okay closer, but it's a weird choice for a closer. I think Crazy Amanda Bunkface would have been a better closer, but it's good. It's a good track. I just think you should switch the sequence. And then you get Pain for Pleasure as the closer, which is 1 minute and 40 seconds. And it carries on. it carries on with what they're doing with their metal stuff. And it's pretty cool to see where they go after this. I think this is their most accessible, dated, but in a fun way album. And then after this, they sort of carry on, I would say, with more punk influence, more metal influence, still it through sort of that poppy lens and that production lens. But this is definitely the album that made them popular. So it's really cool to see that happen so quickly for the group and to hear that happen on there. But I had a lot to say about this album. It's like one of my. It's an album I don't really listen to that much, but I had a lot to say. But that's great. It's really cool to go through their discography. Because, I mean, their next album, Does This Look Infected, I listened to a lot. And then actually, I didn't even listen to Chuck. Like, I don't really have an opinion about the band after that. I just got into other bands and didn't check it out. So I'm excited to see where that goes. So there, let's call it a debut. Let's call it their second album. Sum 41, all killer, no filler. There's a little bit of filler, but it's pretty all killer. Uh, yeah, next up, when we get to Sum 41, we're going to ask, does this look infected? But for today, I hope you had fun, because I had fun. Catch you next time.